From the moment your eyes first opened, you were told the world was already waiting, solid, fixed, unchanging. Yet every sunrise, every breath, rewrites the fabric of what you call real. What if nothing exists until awareness touches it? What if every atom dances only when seen? Maybe the universe isn't out there at all. Maybe it's the mirror quietly forming in the depth of your own perception. For centuries we believed consciousness was born from matter, a flicker inside the brain. But quantum physics whispers another truth. Matter itself bends to the gaze that meets it. The universe doesn't watch you, it waits for you to see it into being. Consciousness is not a byproduct, it's the projector. And the moment you realize this, reality stops being something you live in and becomes something you are endlessly creating. You were taught to believe that you are a small creature, wandering inside an immense universe, a body, a mind, a collection of experiences drifting through time and space. But what if that story was never true? What if the universe isn't something outside of you, but a living field unfolding within your consciousness? The illusion of separation begins the moment we learn to name things: sky, tree, me, you. Language divides what perception once held as whole. The infant doesn't yet see a world. It sees vibration, color, and movement flowing in one continuous rhythm. Only later does the mind carve the rhythm into objects and distances, creating the sense of being an observer, apart from what is observed. This is the first deception, subtle, invisible, and almost impossible to detect because it hides in the very way we look. We think we're seeing reality as it is, but we're seeing through a filter that insists, I am here, and the world is out there. This split births fear, ambition, and the constant search for belonging. When you believe you're separate, every action becomes a negotiation with the unknown. You chase meaning, love, and safety as if they are treasures hidden somewhere outside your reach. Quantum physics offers a quiet correction to this myth. It shows that there is no such thing as a detached observer. The act of looking is an act of participation. The photon, the electron, the wave, all of it responds to being seen. Your awareness is not passive, it's a creative force. What we call the universe is the visible trace of infinite possibilities collapsing into one experience, the one you are perceiving now. Imagine a fish in the ocean. It moves effortlessly through the water, unaware of the vast medium surrounding it. Only when the temperature changes does the fish sense the ocean at all. We are that fish, suspended in the boundless sea of consciousness. We call this sea space and energy when a reality, yet these words only hint at what can't be named. You do not swim in consciousness, you are consciousness, dreaming of being a swimmer. If this sounds abstract, look closer at your own experience. Every thought, sensation, or memory appears within awareness, not outside it. You never actually touch a world out there. You touch the forms your awareness generates. The chair you sit on, the light entering your eyes, the sound of this sentence forming in your mind, all of them occur in the same field of perception. You have never stepped outside it. This realization doesn't make the world vanish. It makes it intimate. Everything you meet becomes a reflection of the same essence wearing different masks. The tree outside your window is not an object. It's the universe recognizing itself through form. When you walk among others, you're walking through extensions of the same consciousness, exploring itself through countless perspectives. The illusion of separation dissolves not by intellectual argument, but by direct noticing. The next time you pause, feel the pulse in your chest and the air moving through your lungs. The same rhythm animates the stars. There is no border between you and what you call the world. There is only perception folding into itself, a single awareness pretending to be many. To awaken from the original deception is not to escape the human experience, but to see it with clarity. You can still laugh, work, desire, and create, but you no longer mistake the waves for the ocean. You recognize yourself as both, the movement and the stillness, the observer and the observed, and in that quiet recognition, the universe no longer feels distant. It becomes the shimmering mirror of your own infinite presence. There is a secret written in the smallest particles of existence, and it has been whispering to us for over a century. In the early 20th century, physicists fired tiny bits of matter, electrons, through two narrow slits, expecting them to behave like miniature bullets. But what appeared on the screen was not a predictable pattern of impacts. Instead, the electrons formed waves, as if each particle had dissolved into pure possibility. Then came the shock. The moment scientists placed a measuring device to observe which slit each electron passed through, the pattern changed. The wave collapsed. The electrons behaved like solid matter again, as if the act of being seen forced them to decide who they were. This experiment, repeated countless times, is the heartbeat of the quantum mystery. Observation itself changes what is observed. Reality at its foundation does not exist as a fixed structure. It exists as a field of potential that responds to awareness. When no one looks, the universe hums in superposition, infinite versions, all possible. When consciousness enters, one version solidifies, a single note emerging from a silent symphony. The human mind often resists this truth. We are conditioned to think of seeing as passive, as though the eyes merely record what already exists. But every act of perception is also an act of selection. You are collapsing countless probabilities every moment you look, think, or feel. The version of the world that reaches you is not the world. It's your world, sculpted by the state of consciousness that observes it. You can sense this directly in daily life. Two people witness the same event, yet their experiences are not the same. One feels insulted, the other amused. One sees tragedy, the other opportunity. The event doesn't change, the observer does. The field of potential rearranges itself according to the frequency of perception. This is not just metaphor, it's the same principle that governs the subatomic realm, only scaled to human emotion and meaning. Your thoughts are not harmless visitors. They are tuning forks striking the field of reality. The mind emits patterns, and matter dances to their rhythm. When you look through fear, you collapse a version of the world filled with threats. When you look through trust, you summon coherence and connection. The universe is not judging you, it's mirroring you. Consider the gaze of a child discovering rain for the first time. There is no resistance, no analysis, only wonder. In that pure attention, the world shines differently. This is consciousness before interpretation, observation as creation in its most innocent form. Adults lose this clarity because they carry the weight of assumption. Every expectation becomes a measurement device, collapsing possibility into habit. To see freshly again is to return to the quantum innocence of not knowing. Science calls it measurement. Spirituality calls it awareness. Both point to the same phenomenon. Attention transforms potential into form. This is why meditation, art, and love share the same architecture. They refine the quality of observation. A painter does not invent color. She reveals what was already there by how she looks. Likewise, reality does not need you to force it into shape. It only needs you to see with coherence. So when you find yourself facing uncertainty, remember, the world you meet next depends on the state of the observer you bring to it. Pause before reacting. Notice the lens through which you're looking. Shift the vibration of your perception from resistance to curiosity, and you will feel the field reorganize around you. It may not change instantly in visible form, but the deeper current begins to move. You never see the world as it is, you see the world as you are. This sentence is not philosophy, it is physics translated into feeling. To observe is to participate. To look consciously is to create deliberately. The universe has been waiting not for your effort, but for your attention. The quiet, luminous act that turns potential into presence and presence into reality. Across centuries, science and mysticism have been circling the same invisible center, describing it in different languages. Einstein called it the unified field, a seamless continuum beneath matter and energy where all forces originate. The sages of India called it Brahman, the boundless reality that gives rise to all forms yet remains untouched by them. Mystics named it the divine immanence, the presence that breathes through every atom. Each tradition, in its own way, points toward the same realization. There is only one field, and consciousness is its living fabric. We are accustomed to thinking of ourselves as isolated systems, separate bodies, private minds, personal stories, But when you look more deeply, even your body is not a fixed entity. Trillions of particles flicker in and out of existence each second, sustained by a field of quantum coherence that holds them together in temporary harmony. The same field that organizes galaxies also orchestrates the rhythm of your heartbeat. There is no dividing line between inner and outer, micro and macro. It is all one vibration, expressing itself through different densities of perception. Imagine a vast ocean, utterly still beneath its surface. The waves that rise and fall upon it are temporary expressions, not separate from the sea. In the same way, every form you encounter, stone, thought, cloud, or person, is a ripple in the field of consciousness. The differences we perceive are variations in frequency, not in essence. Just as sound can become music when tuned to harmony, consciousness becomes creation when it vibrates coherently. The field is not somewhere out there. It is the invisible medium through which every experience occurs. The moment you become aware of a sensation or a thought, you are already touching the field. In fact, you never leave it. Even silence is a form of its resonance, the pause between waves that allows form to exist. Science can map its behavior mathematically, but it cannot measure its mystery. The field is both the container and the content. It is the stage, the play, and the actor at once. When we forget this, life feels fragmented. We begin to defend our boundaries, to compete for energy, to fear loss. But separation is only a distortion in perception, like static in a radio signal. When your attention grows coherent, through stillness, gratitude, or awe, the noise clears, and you sense the hum beneath all things. That hum is the unified field remembering itself through you. You are not accessing something new. You are tuning back into what has always been here. Consider the human heart. It generates an electromagnetic field thousands of times stronger than the brain's, measurable several feet beyond the body. When emotion and thought align, when what you think and what you feel resonate, the heart and brain enter coherence. This coherence is not just physiological, it's a bridge to the unified field. The ancient mystics intuited this long before instruments could detect it. They spoke of the heart as the seat of knowing, the portal where the finite self meets the infinite whole. If the universe is the ocean of consciousness, then each of us is a cresting wave temporarily forgetting its own source. The wave may call itself by a name, tell its story of rise and fall, but it never leaves the water. Every relationship, every moment of attention, is the ocean meeting itself under a new shape. To realize this is not to dissolve individuality, but to illuminate it. You are a unique pattern of the field's awareness, a specific rhythm through which the whole expresses itself. In rare moments of stillness, you may sense this directly. The border between you and the world softens and the air itself feels alive. The thoughts quiet, yet perception widens. That is not imagination, it is recognition. The unified field has never been separate from you. It has only been waiting for your awareness to remember what it already knows. Everything is one movement, one consciousness, one vast presence flowing as the many. For centuries, humanity believed that consciousness was trapped inside the skull, that awareness was a flicker of chemistry confined to the brain. But this belief is slowly eroding. The more science studies the relationship between mind and matter, the clearer it becomes that the brain does not generate consciousness. It receives and translates it. The brain is not the source of awareness, it is the instrument through which awareness expresses itself. Imagine a radio. When it's turned on, music fills the room. You might think the song lives inside the box, but breaking it apart reveals only wires and circuits. The music was never there. It was always in the invisible field, waiting for the right frequency to make it audible. The brain works in a similar way. Its neurons and synapses are not producing thoughts out of nothing. They are tuning into specific frequencies of consciousness and converting them into signals the body can perceive. Neuroscience is beginning to hint at this through studies of brain coherence and neural oscillations. When people enter states of deep meditation, creativity, or love, their brain waves shift into harmonic patterns, alpha, theta, and gamma synchrony. These rhythms are not random, they are resonances, the brain aligning itself with broader frequencies that extend beyond the individual nervous system. Consciousness, in this view, is a field that permeates everything, and the mind is its receiver. If the brain were the true origin of consciousness, awareness would end the moment the brain stopped functioning. Yet countless accounts of near-death experiences, as well as controlled research into non-local perception, suggest otherwise. People report vivid awareness during moments when brain activity is almost flat. Some describe details from rooms they couldn't physically see, moments that later prove verifiable. While science debates the mechanisms, the implications are profound. Consciousness may not depend on biology, it may be the ground from which biology emerges. This understanding changes the way we relate to thought itself. If the brain is an antenna, then every thought is a signal tuned from the vast field of consciousness. What you think may not originate in isolation, but as resonance with certain frequencies, some harmonious, others dissonant. Fear, resentment, and shame tune the mind toward lower coherence, receiving noise and distortion. Gratitude, clarity, and compassion raise the signal, allowing subtle and creative insights to flow. The quality of what you perceive is determined not by effort, but by frequency. You can sense this in everyday moments. When your mind is chaotic, everything you see reflects that restlessness. Conversations feel tense, decisions confusing, the world heavy. But when you pause, breathe, and let awareness settle, the same circumstances seem lighter. Nothing external has changed, only your internal tuner has shifted. The clearer the signal, the more reality aligns with coherence. This view also reframes the mystery of genius and intuition. Throughout history, great discoveries and works of art have appeared not through struggle, but through sudden realization, as if something larger whispered through the mind of the thinker. Einstein called his insights intuitive leaps. Mozart said music came fully formed, and he merely wrote it down. These moments are transmissions, not constructions, consciousness broadcasting through an open channel. To live with this understanding is to take responsibility for the quality of your attention. You are constantly broadcasting and receiving. Every intention, every emotion sends ripples through the field and tunes the mind toward a matching signal. When you fill your awareness with resentment, you amplify noise. When you cultivate silence and sincerity, the antenna clears. This is why practices of mindfulness, prayer, or creative flow feel so luminous. They return the receiver to its natural resonance. You don't have to find consciousness or force insight to happen. You simply clear interference, fear, judgment, the static of overthinking, until the deeper signal comes through. The mind then stops being a producer and becomes what it was meant to be. A bridge between the invisible and the visible, translating pure awareness into thought, emotion, and form. In that recognition, something liberating occurs. You realize that you have never been a separate thinker struggling to create meaning. You have always been the instrument through which the universe sings itself into experience. Every second of your life, the universe presents you with infinite possibilities, countless versions of the next moment, all waiting to take form. What determines which one appears is not chance or destiny, but the vibration of your observation. You are not merely witnessing reality, you are selecting it. The act of observing is the act of choosing which version of the world becomes visible to you. Quantum mechanics gave this revelation a scientific body. In the double-slit experiment, light behaves like a wave of probabilities when unobserved, but turns into a particle, a defined reality, once measured. Consciousness collapses potential into form. This same principle applies far beyond the laboratory. Every thought, emotion, and belief acts as an observer, shaping how the field around you organizes itself. You do not attract what you want, you collapse what you are willing to see as real. Each emotional state carries its own frequency, its own gravitational pull on the quantum field. Fear narrows your timeline. It selects realities that confirm danger, isolation, and limitation. Love expands it. It calls in paths of connection and synchronicity. The shift between them can be microscopic, but its consequences are immense. The moment you alter the lens of awareness, the probabilities around you rearrange. You literally change which version of life you step into. Consider a simple example. A person carries an old wound, a memory of betrayal that colors how they see the world. Every interaction is filtered through that pain. Without realizing it, they collapse the same emotional pattern again and again, meeting different faces but living the same story. Then one day they observe differently. Instead of replaying the wound, they witness it with compassion. They realize the pain was never proof of unworthiness, but an invitation to awareness. In that instant, the vibration shifts, and with it, the entire field. The past remains unchanged, yet its meaning is rewritten. The wave of possibility collapses into a new version of the self, and that new self meets a new reality. You experience this every time you choose awareness over reaction. When anger arises and you observe it without feeding it, the pattern dissolves. When fear whispers and you breathe through it, you change its energetic code. Observation infused with presence is alchemy. It transforms energy without force. What you look at with resistance persists. What you look at with clarity reorganizes. This is the practical power of consciousness, to witness with precision. You don't need rituals of control or effort. You need coherence. Reality listens to coherence the way a mirror responds to light. Every emotion you hold, every belief you nourish, reflects back through circumstances, timing, and people. The more you see with openness, the more the world becomes transparent to possibility. At its deepest level, this process isn't about controlling outcomes, it's about remembering authorship. You are the observer and the observed, constantly meeting yourself in new disguises. When you shift your attention, you shift the story. When you choose to perceive with love instead of fear, you collapse a universe that vibrates at that same frequency. So pause for a moment and notice what you are observing right now. Notice the tone of your thoughts, the texture of your emotion. Are you collapsing a world of scarcity or one of abundance? Are you feeding a reality of contraction or expansion? This awareness is the turning point. It is where possibility becomes tangible. And if this truth stirs something inside you, let it move into action. Take a breath, feel the pulse of the moment, and recognize that the world around you is responding to your gaze even now. If you've ever witnessed your perception shift your reality, even in a small way, write it below. Share that moment in the comments, and let your story become another observation collapsing into light. And if this reflection resonated, give it a simple signal of coherence, a like, a quiet "I see," a pulse of awareness that ripples through the field we share. Time has always felt like the great current that carries us from birth to death, past to future, cause to effect. We are taught to move along its arrow, always forward, never back. Yet the deeper we look, the more fragile that arrow becomes. In the quantum world, time doesn't flow in one direction. It bends, loops, and sometimes vanishes altogether. What we call the present isn't a point on a line. It's the entire field from which both past and future emerge. Physics has long hinted at this. In experiments on quantum entanglement, two particles separated by vast distances appear to affect each other instantaneously, as though distance, and therefore time, doesn't exist. The connection between them isn't traveling, it's simultaneous. What happens to one immediately reshapes the state of the other. If space and time are the framework of the physical universe, then consciousness seems to exist beneath that framework, touching all points at once. To live within time is to experience sequence, but consciousness itself is timeless. The mind divides the flow into before and after, yet awareness simply is. It does not move, it observes movement. When you become still enough to notice, you realize that every memory, every anticipation appears now. Even when you recall your childhood, you are not traveling into the past. You are recreating it in the present moment, drawing it from potential into perception. Each act of remembering is an act of creation. You don't remember events, you manifest their energetic patterns anew. This understanding has profound implications for how we live and heal. If the past isn't fixed, then it can be rewritten through awareness. Not the events themselves, but their vibration, the emotional signature they hold. When you bring present moment consciousness to an old wound, you collapse a new version of that memory. The pain becomes information. The fear becomes energy freed from its story. What once felt unchangeable begins to dissolve because you are no longer observing it through the lens of trauma. Likewise, the future is not a destination waiting ahead. It is a probability forming from the state of your present attention. Every thought, every emotional tone you embody now is like a signal broadcast into the field. The universe responds not to your calendar, but to your coherence. What you call the future is the echo of your current vibration made visible later. When you fear what's coming, you're not predicting it. You're summoning the frequency that will give it shape. When you trust, you open timelines aligned with expansion. This quantum view of time dissolves the anxiety of urgency. Life stops being a race from point A to point B and becomes a continuous unfolding of presence. There is no later where peace or fulfillment awaits. There is only this infinite moment, appearing as a sequence so consciousness can experience itself in motion. Time, then, is not an external force. It's the reflection of how awareness chooses to perceive change. In this light, the idea of destiny changes meaning. The paths that seem pre-written are not imposed upon you. They are the patterns most resonant with your current frequency. Shift the vibration, and the path rearranges. This is why moments of awakening often feel like stepping into another life without physically moving anywhere. The external world seems the same, but something fundamental has changed. The observer, and thus the timeline, has shifted. When you rest in the present, you are standing in the only portal through which transformation can occur. The past becomes pliable, the future fluid. Every breath is a convergence of infinite timelines meeting at one luminous center. To live here is to understand that time is not your master, but your mirror. It bends to the quality of your perception. So the next time you catch yourself chasing tomorrow or grieving yesterday, pause. Notice the texture of the now, the heartbeat, the sound, the awareness watching both thought and silence. This is the true axis of time, consciousness witnessing itself unfold. In that witnessing, eternity hides in plain sight. Every feeling you experience is more than chemistry. It is a vibration that interacts directly with the fabric of reality. Modern instruments can measure the electromagnetic field generated by the human heart, 5,000 times stronger than that of the brain. This field is not just an internal pulse, it extends beyond the body, weaving itself into the quantum field that surrounds and connects everything. Your emotions are not private, they are broadcast signals shaping the probabilities that solidify around you. The HeartMath Institute, among others, has studied what happens when emotion and thought align. They call it coherence, a state in which the heart, brain, and nervous system synchronize into harmonious rhythm. In that condition, the body becomes a clear transmitter, and consciousness can project intentions with minimal distortion. Coherence isn't mystical, it's measurable. Heart rate variability smooths, cortisol drops, intuition heightens. The inner order reflects outward, creating conditions where synchronicities appear more often, not by magic, but by resonance. Think of your emotional state as the tuning fork of reality. Every thought you hold vibrates through it, amplifying certain frequencies while canceling others. Anger, guilt, or anxiety create chaotic interference. They scatter the signal, leading to confusion and fragmented results. Gratitude, compassion, and joy bring order. They generate patterns that invite alignment in the external world. The universe doesn't reward positive feelings and punish negative ones. It simply echoes coherence. It mirrors back the structure of your internal vibration. You can sense this in subtle ways. When your heart is open, events flow with ease. Conversations become meaningful. Opportunities appear without effort. When you are contracted, everything feels heavy and resistant. The field isn't cruel. It's responsive. It reflects what you radiate. Each emotion is a code, instructing the universe on how to organize around you. Change the code, and the structure of your experience begins to shift. This is why emotional awareness is not self-indulgence. It's creative hygiene. Ignored emotions do not vanish. They persist as frequencies continuing to broadcast from the unconscious. You can't think your way out of fear or shame because they vibrate deeper than logic. They must be felt, observed, and integrated until their energy becomes coherent again. When you allow emotion to move freely instead of resisting it, the heart's field recalibrates. What felt chaotic begins to find rhythm. In moments of deep coherence, Thought and emotion cease to compete. You think with the heart, feel with the mind. This fusion of cognition and sensation generates extraordinary clarity. Many ancient traditions knew this intuitively. They taught breathing techniques, chanting, and rhythmic movements, not as rituals of belief, but as tools to harmonize internal frequencies. Science now calls this heart-brain synchronization, but the essence is the same. When you vibrate as one system, the field around you reorganizes. Imagine sitting quietly, breathing slowly, feeling the pulse of your heartbeat expand with each exhale. As you visualize something you desire, not as a distant wish but as a state already alive within you, the heart begins to emit a coherent signal. The electromagnetic field surrounding your body changes measurably. This is not fantasy. It's physiology guided by awareness. The desire ceases to be a thought chasing a result and becomes a frequency declaring its presence. The universe, which operates by resonance, matches that signal with events, people, and possibilities vibrating at the same rate. To create consciously is to feel deliberately. Thought is the map, emotion the engine. Without emotional coherence, intentions remain abstract. With it, the boundary between inner and outer dissolves, and life begins to respond almost instantly. Every moment becomes an opportunity to tune the heart, to bring it back to resonance when it drifts into noise. You don't have to suppress negative feelings or force positivity. Coherence is not about pretending, it's about authenticity. When you acknowledge what you feel with full awareness, even pain vibrates toward harmony. The field does not require perfection, it responds to truth. The more sincerely you inhabit your own emotions, the more transparent the world becomes to your presence. In the quiet rhythm of a coherent heart, the illusion of separation fades. The world no longer feels like something you must change. It becomes something you harmonize with, an ongoing symphony where your every breath, every thought, every pulse is both musician and music, both creator and creation. From the moment we are born, the world begins to tell us who we are. We receive names, stories, labels, expectations, tiny frequencies that start to define the boundaries of a self. Over time, these vibrations become condensed into identity. I am this, we say, and not that. Yet beneath all those layers lies something fluid, something far less confined, a field of consciousness continually selecting which version of you to embody. The self is not a fixed point, it is a pattern of vibration temporarily stabilized by attention. Quantum physics tells us that matter is not solid, it's energy held in resonance. The same principle applies to identity. Who you believe yourself to be is a configuration of frequencies, beliefs, emotions, memories, that the mind sustains through repetition. Change the vibration, and the version of you that the world mirrors changes as well. This is not metaphor, it is mechanics. The observer collapses not only the outer universe but also the inner self. Every belief acts as an observation about who you are, and that observation becomes the template through which reality arranges itself. Imagine the self as a prism refracting the light of consciousness. Each thought and emotion filters that light into color, into form. When the prism is clouded with fear or shame, the light bends unevenly, and the reflected world seems fragmented. When it clears through awareness, the same light radiates in full spectrum, revealing unity beneath diversity. What changes is not the light itself, it is your transparency to it. This is why transformation often feels like remembering rather than learning. You are not constructing a new self, you are allowing old frequencies to dissolve so a clearer signal can emerge. The true you has never been lost. It has simply been overshadowed by patterns of thought vibrating at lower coherence. Every moment of awareness is a small shift in frequency, and with each shift, the world reorganizes to match. Consider how emotion alters perception. When you wake up anxious, the day seems filled with obstacles. When you feel peaceful, the same world appears open and luminous. These are not two realities, but two versions of self, observing the same field. The observer's vibration determines what portion of the infinite you can perceive. You are both the radio and the song. Each frequency you hold reveals a different melody of existence. This understanding also reframes the question of authenticity. Most people search for an authentic self as though it were a single permanent essence. But authenticity is not static. It's coherence between what you feel, think, and express in this moment. When those layers align, the self resonates purely, and reality responds in kind. The more coherent the vibration, the more transparent the boundary between inner and outer becomes. It's possible to feel this directly. Close your eyes and bring to mind a memory of profound gratitude. Let the emotion expand until it fills your chest. Notice how your sense of self subtly changes, less rigid, more spacious. In that state, your identity is no longer confined by stories. It becomes a frequency of openness. From that openness, creativity and intuition flow effortlessly because the signal of consciousness is unobstructed. You are constantly shifting between versions of yourself, sometimes without realizing it. The confident you, the fearful you, the loving you, they are all patterns of vibration the universe recognizes and reflects. The power lies in awareness. The moment you notice which frequency you are broadcasting, you reclaim authorship. You can decide to retune, not by pretending to feel differently, but by resting your attention in a more coherent state until it stabilizes as your new baseline. The universe does not respond to what you say you want, but to what you are while observing. This statement captures the essence of the quantum self. Reality is not reacting to your words or intentions. It is resonating with your frequency. Every identity you inhabit is a temporary agreement between your consciousness and the field. Change the agreement, and the mirror of life changes shape. To understand identity as vibration is to dissolve the need to cling to any version of me. You become fluid, adaptive, and infinitely creative. The self stops being a cage and becomes a current, a living waveform of awareness moving through time, ever renewing, ever aware that behind every form of I, there is only one source, forever expressing itself through you. Every thought, every emotion, and every act of perception contributes to a shared field of awareness. What you think is private is, in truth, a ripple within a vast ocean of human consciousness. Each of us is a transmitter and receiver, shaping the collective vibration of the planet. This is not poetic exaggeration, it is physics in action. Just as individual atoms form coherent structures through resonance, minds aligned in common emotion create measurable effects in the field that binds them. The idea of collective consciousness is not new. Ancient traditions spoke of the one mind, the shared dream through which humanity evolves. Modern science has begun to trace its outlines through data that defies coincidence. Global networks measuring subtle magnetic and electrical activity, like those monitoring the Schumann resonances of the Earth, have shown correlations between collective human emotion and fluctuations in the planet's electromagnetic field. During moments of worldwide focus, whether of grief or unity, the Earth itself seems to respond. The field that surrounds us is not indifferent. It listens. You can feel this field intuitively. Walk into a room where people are arguing and the tension is almost tangible, vibrating in your body before a word is spoken. Enter a place filled with compassion, such as a vigil, a concert, or a gathering in silence, and your system softens. These are microcosms of the larger truth. Humanity is constantly tuning the emotional tone of the collective field, moment by moment. We live inside one another's frequencies. When large groups of people direct coherent emotion simultaneously, the effect multiplies. Studies on mass meditation have documented temporary drops in crime rates and increases in social harmony. Whether through science or spirit, the message is consistent. Collective observation alters collective reality. What we hold in our shared awareness becomes the energetic architecture of our world. This means that global change is not only political or technological, it is vibrational. Each coherent mind contributes stability to the field, just as each dissonant mind contributes turbulence. The implications are both humbling and empowering. The state of your consciousness affects more than your private life. It participates in the formation of our shared experience. Your calm can steady others without a word. Your compassion can ripple through the field and inspire gentleness in places you'll never see. The boundary between personal healing and global healing is thinner than we imagine. When you bring coherence to your inner world, you broadcast that order into the human network, influencing patterns far beyond your reach. Imagine the planet as a single organism, with each person as a neuron in its vast neural network. Thoughts are impulses, emotions are electrical currents, and culture is the collective brainwave pattern emerging from their interaction. When enough neurons fire in harmony, the entire system evolves to a new level of intelligence. Humanity's crises, ecological, social, spiritual, may be symptoms of the same imbalance that occurs when the neural field loses coherence. Healing one mind helps restore the balance of the whole. In this sense, awakening is not a private achievement, but an act of service. To expand consciousness is to increase the clarity of the field through which all beings communicate. When many observe with the same heart, the field stabilizes, and new possibilities become accessible to everyone. It is no coincidence that breakthroughs in art, science, and empathy often appear simultaneously in different places. The collective mind reaches a certain frequency, and the insight becomes available to any receiver tuned to it. We often speak of changing the world as if it were an external project, but the deeper transformation happens in the invisible architecture of thought and emotion. Each time you choose understanding over judgment, presence over distraction, you polish the mirror in which humanity sees itself. What reflects back is a more coherent reality, one capable of sustaining peace. The collective consciousness is not a metaphor, it is the living field of awareness through which we exist. Every moment you embody clarity, you help steady that field. The earth itself vibrates with our attention. When we remember that we are not isolated observers but facets of a single mind, compassion stops being a virtue and becomes a necessity. For only when we observe with the same heart does the human mirror become clear enough for the universe to recognize its own face. There comes a moment in every journey of awareness when the search for understanding turns inward. After exploring the vastness of quantum fields, the architecture of perception, and the interplay between thought and creation, one begins to sense that the final mystery is not external at all. The frontier we have been trying to reach lies within, the still point from which all perception arises. The return to the center is not a retreat from reality, but a revelation of its true nature, consciousness observing itself. At first, this idea sounds abstract. How can the observer and the observed be one? But when you become quiet enough, you begin to notice the space behind every thought, the silent witness that remains unchanged as emotions, sensations, and memories come and go. You may call it awareness, spirit, or the field itself, but its essence is the same. It is the unmoving center around which the dance of experience unfolds. You have never been outside it. You have simply been distracted by the motion of the dance. When attention turns inward without resistance, perception reverses direction. The energy once used to grasp and interpret flows back to its source. The boundaries between subject and object begin to blur. The world no longer appears as something to be known, but as something arising within knowing itself. This is the moment where the mirror realizes that the reflection is not separate from the light that makes it visible. Throughout history, mystics and physicists alike have reached this convergence from opposite sides. The mystic dissolves into unity through silence. The physicist dissolves duality through observation. Both discover the same principle. The act of observing and the act of being are inseparable. Reality is self-reflective, a loop of awareness experiencing its own existence through form. Every atom, every heartbeat, every thought is that same consciousness folding upon itself to see what it looks like as matter, as time, as you. In the return to the center, something extraordinary yet profoundly simple happens. You stop seeking. The need to define, to control, or to reach dissolves. What remains is clarity without effort, presence without a story. You realize that everything you have ever tried to find through knowledge or spirituality was never missing. It was the awareness doing the seeking, pretending not to know itself, so that the play of discovery could unfold. This realization doesn't erase individuality, it recontextualizes it. The self becomes a wave within the vast ocean of consciousness, unique yet inseparable from the whole. The wave doesn't need to vanish to know the ocean. It only needs to recognize that its motion and the sea's stillness are the same essence expressing in two forms. The duality between observer and observed dissolves not by merging into nothingness, but by realizing that they were never apart. You can sense this truth directly, not as an idea, but as a shift in perception. Close your eyes for a moment and notice that awareness is already here, effortlessly present. Everything you can name, sounds, sensations, thoughts, appears within it. Now turn attention toward the awareness itself. Can you find its edge? Can you locate where it begins or ends? The moment you look, it expands because the one who is looking and that which is being looked for are one and the same. This is the essence of self-realization, the recognition that consciousness is both the mirror and the image, both the witness and the world. What you call life is the universe contemplating itself in motion. What you call death is consciousness withdrawing attention from one form to create space for another. The cycle is continuous, endless, and perfectly whole. To live from this awareness is to see unity in every reflection. You no longer divide experiences into sacred and ordinary, inner and outer, spiritual and mundane. The same light flows through all of them. The return to the center does not lead to isolation. It births intimacy with existence itself. You begin to meet the world not as something separate to be understood, but as your own awareness meeting its reflection in infinite forms. In that recognition, the search ends, and what remains is the quiet brilliance of consciousness knowing itself. Everything you perceive outside is an echo of your own vibration. The universe is not a stage on which you stand. It is your own awareness taking form. Consciousness is not trying to understand reality. It is reality remembering itself through you. When you look with presence, creation happens anew. The world is not waiting to be changed. It is waiting to be seen for what it truly is, your reflection made luminous. Stay in this frequency a little longer. Each moment you observe with awareness, the field awakens with you. Let this truth settle quietly in your breath and in your gaze. If you reach this point, write "I am the observer" in the comments so I know you are here. And if this reflection resonated with you, subscribe and keep journeying deeper into this unfolding awareness with us.